The congregational assessment tool, what and why? So this was a tool developed by the creator of a company called Holy Cow Consulting. They do work on assessing congregational health across all the mainline denominational churches. They do about 200 of these a year. And so they've got a really great baseline against which to measure our results versus other churches. It has a standard 87 question survey, which is set, which then can be compared directly with the peer groups. Like I say, our responses were compared with 300 plus other churches that were all during the COVID era, so it's sort of a similar data set, okay? So why? This is required by the diocese, as Heather said, for any parish entering a search. We did this a few years ago when we were ramping up to call Father Doug here, and I'll say a couple things to compare the two surveys as we go along. Their main concerns are, can this parish support a rector? It turns out we can. The second is, are there issues that need resolving in advance of calling a new rector? And the answer was no, there weren't. Hence, instead of getting a full-time interim as we had last time, we get to keep Father Derek as associate rector during the interim, because we don't have problems that really need to be determined. Okay. And yes, the diocese retains a consultant so that she can go through the results with the vestries and search committees of every parish that's going through a search. Okay, but what's in it for us? Okay, Good Shepherd gets a snapshot in time of the health of the parish today, and especially the concerns and the aspirations of the parish. The vestry can thereby identify issues that we might want to address during the interim, so that we can sort of tend to things that the congregation thinks needs tending to. Now, an interim period is not a time to make major changes that then the next rector will come in and completely change, but it is a good time to experiment and to try different things to see where the energy of the congregation is, okay? And then the second major thing is the search committee then gets timely information to help identify rector candidates that are a good fit for us. And this goes in writing the parish profile and also in drafting questions to ask potential candidates during the interview process. Okay, how can we be confident that the CAT results are an accurate representation of our congregation? So it turns out a total of 234 responses were received to the CAT, and this represents 98% of our average Sunday attendance in 2021. Now, this is a bit off because, of course, during part of 2021, we were limiting the number of people who could come to church. So, but it represents 68% of our pre-COVID peak, which was 343 average Sunday attendance. That's right before the shutdown with COVID. And this, she marveled at this. So in order to be statistically significant, she said we needed about 30% participation. We more than doubled it, or tripled it, depending on which number you're going to use. So we can have high confidence that the results are representative. Okay, overall, how is Good Shepherd doing according to the CAP results? Good Shepherd's in a very good place right now. Let's give ourselves a hand. So there's something called the climate, what they call the climate of the congregation. And we have what's called a transformational climate. And this is marked by high satisfaction and a feeling that there's real energy in what we're going on. We're not just going through the motions in our church. So on these metrics, we had 70% satisfaction and 65% energy. So the writer of the book that goes with this survey said the ultimate the strike zone is what he calls it, the thing that you're really aiming for, is greater than 70% satisfaction. You've done it. And greater than 85% energy. So we've got some work to do, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. In addition, our members perceive that we're flexible in how we do things to address our mission. I'm sure a lot of that came out of the great work we did during the COVID shutdown when we had the live streaming and we started to offer things online, etc. So there's that feeling that we're flexible. And the one weak point here is that the perception that our church tends to stay close to the established ways of doing things. So by a significant fraction, 45% agreeing and 40% tending to agree with this one thing. This was the one thing that brought our flexibility down, okay? So congregations, and this is a study of over many years, over many surveys, congregations that report 70% satisfaction, 85% plus energy, and 90% plus flexibility typically exhibit really strong growth. In other words, it just catches fire. We're doing such a great job that people just want to come here and be a part of it. We're very close to those numbers, okay?
How many congregations actually see that?
See what?
70, 85, and 90?
We were considered exceptional, like top 10th percentile. So I would say maybe the top 5% of churches in the United States. Okay? So our numbers are very close to that, where we're just going to catch on fire and start growing. Okay. In specific areas, how does Good Shepherd compare to other congregations? So the CAT performance dashboard, which I've just reproduced here exactly as it was in the report, show that most of our metrics are exceptional. Okay? Conflict management, we were in the 97th percentile. That means that for every church that is better than us at conflict management, there are about 29, 39 churches that aren't. You see what I'm saying? So we're really good at conflict management. This will come up in a moment as well, okay? Morale, education, readiness for ministry, all of those were greater than the 90th percentile. Governance and hospitality, we were 87, 88%. So the two that were sort of more towards the middle were spiritual vitality and worship and music. So our spiritual vitality, we were at the 72nd percentile, and worship and music, we were 48%. But if you drill down on this, you found that generally our worship, people were in the 90th percentile in that. The weakness is the music. Our congregation is, and of course this just reflects our congregation's reporting on how they feel about things. Our congregation is basically underwhelmed by our music program. And we'll talk about that during the discussion, I'm sure. And what we find is, of course, that we have a lot of people like myself who grew up in a very high church atmosphere that would love to sing Mozart and Mendelssohn every Sunday. And we have wonderful musicians, semi-professional musicians in our congregation who play the guitar and could have a really sort of fun, dynamic, happy-clappy sort of service. Neither of those is what we have, and I think this is a big part of this. Okay, so this measured priorities in different age groups of the congregation as well. So I'll start with the different priorities, the unique priority that was unique to each group. So for people 65 and older, opportunities for Christian education and spiritual formation for all ages was a high priority. That was not a priority for either the middle-aged or the younger crowd, okay? This is not surprising. The consultant said this is very common. The main thing is as you get towards the last, third of your lifespan, you're worried that you want to pass on your faith to younger generations. So you want more Christian formation, okay? For those 35 to 64, training for ministry and leadership, she again said this is very common because people, as they start to get rid of their kids or their kids get old enough that they're driving themselves, they want to get more involved. but they also want to take on leadership roles, which are typically held by people who are older, have been in those roles for many years. And then for 35 and younger, outreach involving direct services to marginalized groups. And she said this is very common. For millennials and Gen Z, they want to see the people they're ministering to, okay? Or to do something that they really interface. So working in the soup kitchen, handing out groceries where they get to see the people they're handing them to. This is what they're interested in. And so if we're trying to get in younger people, then this is something to think about. There are 3 priorities that were common to all 3 age groups. Attracting young families was the #1 thing. Having more small groups that allow deeper connections. Not surprisingly, coming out of COVID when we couldn't meet up, and we haven't had our Lenten dinners. I really miss that soup, right? That this is something that she says is very common, but it's something that we should address as we come out of COVID. And then outreach to those broken by life circumstances. And as you'll see, our mission outreach is a point of pride for our congregation, which you'll see later. So these 3 priorities would be likely to energize the entire congregation as a whole. So these are things that if we want intergenerational work, which is a big keyword for our 5-year plan that's just now coming to an end, then these are things that all age groups really would be energized by. What attributes are sort of unique or distinguish Good Shepherd from other congregations? First and foremost, and this was a surprise to many of us, Good Shepherd exhibits unusual theological diversity. So while the majority of people who answered the theological questions were sort of middle of the road, not majority, a plurality. And a plurality is not more than 50%, but it's the biggest vote getter, okay? Are sort of middle of the road. We had 20% plus who were quite liberal in their answers, and we had 20% plus who were very conservative. So we have tremendous theological diversity in our congregation, and she emphasized that this is something that we need rector candidates to know. In other words, a candidate coming in who is going to be strong in one end or strong in the other might not be a good fit for Christian, okay? And I would say that this is something I think we can build on. We're at a time of historic conflict and distrust in this country. Coming to a church where you have different people from all different backgrounds who have different beliefs, but they're working together because they have a common mission focus. That would be a really compelling story for us. Just saying. Oh, so there were 2 priorities out of the 17 where we listed where Good Shepherd was not typical of most parishes. And you can see these are not ranked really high, but they're ranked a lot higher than the average. So the first was improving facilities. This, across the board in most congregations, is the last thing they want to do. Number 17 of 17 priorities on average. Ours, it was number 8. Okay, that's unusual. The second was improving the music program. Typically, this is number 15 of 17 priorities. For us, it was number 10. Those are the only 2 where it was more than 3 steps different than the average. Okay. What other features came out? So our pledged income to Good Shepherd is about 2.2% of household income. And this is near the 50th percentile for the Episcopal Church as a whole, which is 2.3%. Now, she did point out that since we're in the 90th percentile on most of our metrics, that if we were in the 90th percentile on pledged income, that number would be closer to 3.5%, which is 50% more than what the average pledged income is. So she suggested that that's something we might want to look at. And then the other thing is people are clearly driving past other churches to come to ours. Our church is a regional draw. So a majority of our respondents live 5+ miles from our church, and 10% live 15+ miles, including yours truly. Okay. So there you go. Okay. So we We had 12 custom questions that I crafted, ran past the vestry wordsmithed them, and these came at the end of the survey. So we've gone beyond comparing with other congregations. These are things that we wanted to know about our congregation. So, number one, we are committed to Good Shepherd. Only one of 234 respondents said that they might be church shopping during the interim. And over 80% said, I think 87% were strongly, no way, this is my place. So that's good.
But even people who were church shopping wouldn't necessarily be motivated to fill out a survey to do
but people like to register protest, and this happened to a certain extent in this survey. So saying that you're going church shopping is a way of saying you're unhappy, and a survey is an easy way to do it. So,
okay, thank you.
and Good Shepherd's mission, vision, and motto statements really resonate. So our motto, we have a place for you. Fully 90% of our congregation said they strongly believe that Good Shepherd exists to be a beacon of faith, hope, and love, which is the mission statement that came out of our 5-year planning 5 years ago. Okay? And 80% indicated that those three things, the mission, the motto, and the vision, represent their priorities for the direction of the church, which is good. A majority, 60%, indicated the Good Shepherd Episcopal School was integral to this church's mission, and only 5% disagreed. So there's strong support for the school. So what about the stewardship and facilities development? So our giving is a very healthy model. It is most strongly influenced, number one, by personal faith, and number two, by the effectiveness of our church in making a real difference. And she made the point that these priorities mean that your giving is stable. Other churches that she has gone to, if the stock market's down, ding, 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 I'm not pledging this year. Many churches are in that position. We are not, which is good. So facility improvement, we asked a specific question on that. 35% agreed with the statement. We need to improve our facilities to enhance our mission. 50% were on the fence, meaning they either tended to agree, tended to disagree, or not agree or disagree. And 50%.
The mic is on. Yeah, I think the mic's going down.
Okay. Oh, I see it's covered. And, okay, our CAT survey featured 2 open-ended questions, and this was golden, because we got to hear in your own words what you felt about what could be improved and what was great. So the first question was, what one thing could Good Shepherd do to better fulfill your vision of the church's mission? And it said then, if nothing, please so indicate explicitly. And identify, and help, this is help to identify areas where we might want to experiment during the interim. And in a few sentences, tell us about an experience that you had at Good Shepherd where you walked away feeling, wow, that's the church. That's what it means to be the church. So that's to identify points of pride. So what I'm done is I've laid up 3 pie charts. Don't gloss over. I will highlight things appropriately, okay? So, the first pie chart, this is what could we do better. The takeaway from this one is that the biggest answer we got was nothing. We're doing great as it is. So let's not fix what's broken, basically, was the answer there, okay? If you take away the nothing, it makes it easier to see the other parts. So the 3 areas that, for improvement, number 1 was music. So there's a theme here. Number 2 were programs for and for attracting young families, that we need to do more there. And the 3rd was community outreach. Those are the 3 areas that we feel we need to do a better job on. Things to do that are points of pride. Number 1, our welcoming atmosphere. And to read those individual comments was just heartwarming. people saying, I walk into the church the first time and there's somebody being comforted, being hugged by somebody else because she's going through a hard time. Or things like that. It's really something that's a real hallmark of our church. The narthex is a great place to showcase who we are, in other words. Number 2, our mission outreach. It's a real point of pride that we have this successful food pantry, that we have this relationship with the Bondo people. All of this stuff is a real point of pride for our church. And the third, and this is sort of a danger, Will Robin danger thing, is preaching. People love our preaching. Many people said, now there's the church, I came back, boy, and Father Doug, you given a really good sermon. Well, the challenge for us is to make sure that we get somebody who has a similar effect in preaching. Okay? So, just to summarize the three major things. The things that we could do better: music program, investing in young families, community outreach. Things that are our signature strength, our welcoming atmosphere, our mission outreach, and the quality of the preaching in our church. So to summarize, Good Shepherd is in a great place as we enter the search for our next rector. This is fantastic news. She was awed. She said, I really, it's just to have a review like this, it really takes the weight off because I have so many reviews that are just down in the dumps. So, we have a great congregational climate that sees our members happy and energized. Our performance metrics compare favorably with other congregations, almost without exception. And we have great information about the congregation for the transition and to prepare for the next chapter. And with that, yes.
Yeah, so Ian, kind of what we're getting from all this is, the next rector should be a guy right down the middle, leave the politics at home, focus on scripture, focus on community, focus on, the things that we feel are important, that, whether it be music and attracting young families. Is that what I got?
Yeah, and we certainly want a rector that is not a soapbox rector. I think that's the thing. The comments about Father Doug's, and this, I didn't need to read these comments to know this. So many people walk away from Father Doug's sermons thinking, I thought he preached that just for me. It's something where you really feel, and that is something that we hope to have when we call the next rector. We certainly don't want to call a rector who 25% of the church is going to walk away. Definitely. Yeah, Larry.
I have a question, not necessarily to the survey, but thank you for expounding on results. Do we know how many other churches in our diocese are going through this process right now?
The search.
Yes.
A search. I don't know what St. Mary's has been going through a search. I don't know where they are.
Four?
There are 4 in our deanery. In our deanery.
4 in our deanery.
They're all in Martin County.
So 2 of the churches in our deanery that are going through a search, they did not meet the criteria that the diocese put forward, and they are calling a shared rector.
So what is the how many deaneries are in our state?
There are 5
Our
deaneries.
diocese.
There are 5 deaneries
Thank
in our diocese. Yeah, Ramona.
Just a point of interest, Bethesda by the Sea has been looking a year and a half because they had so much trouble trying to find the right minister for them.
Yeah.
They just called one of the candidates who ran against Father Doug as their rector.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. That is great.
So there's 4 in our deanery, so maybe 20 of the diocese if you were to.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense. Just to say, last time we had a long search because we had had the same rector for many, many years. And different dioceses have different rules of thumb. The one that I know is for every 10 years you had a rector, you need 1 year before you even start the search process. So Father Bob had been here for 25 years. So this time we don't need that long interim because we're still relatively fresh and we're energized, which is great. We can really get right down to the brass tacks. Other questions?
I'm wondering what the extent of the search is. Is it nationwide? Is it just in the southeast Florida? Where are we looking?
So a part of doing the search, a standard thing to do, is to post it on the Episcopal Church. I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically, if you're a priest looking for a new church, the posting goes there. So you can look and see, and they have standard questions that get answered so that you can a priest can very quickly see, is this a fit for me or not? And they can shortlist a few things. So yes, we could potentially draw from around the country.
It's actually worldwide. Anybody can apply.
Wherever there's internet.
So what is the timeline that we're looking at here?
It's hard to say, and that's more the search committee's role. One of the things that the person who wrote the survey said is that there are 3 distinct phases to any transition. There's a transition plan, which is the purview of the vestry, and Heather's going to say a few words about that in a moment. There's the search plan. That's self-explanatory. The search committee does that. And then there's the startup plan. And he has actually a number of ways that we can help anybody new coming in to try to piece together, who's who in our congregation, which is really interesting, but that's for another day. Okay.
Thank you. That was very good.
I can't even see that, so I'm going to come stand over here. Yeah, my glasses can't do the up down. Thank you, Ian, for doing that. So this year the vestry had our retreat a couple of weeks ago, and we had 100% attendance of the vestry at our retreat, which is somewhat unusual. There's always 1 or 2 missing. Everybody was there. We had some very healthy discussions about what we needed to do. And as Ian said, we cannot make major changes. We cannot build a new church hall or things like that during this time, but we can experiment with things that we feel are important to the congregation to keep us energized and keep us moving forward. And so the vestry was asked as part of the day to identify areas that came up in the survey that we could address in some small way and experiment with in some small way in the interim. And so these are a very quick synopsis of those. Before I go into those, though, I just want to say a couple of words, and that is, I hope that the congregation is very aware of the hard work that is going on with our staff. We are down from 5 full-time people to 4 full-time people. That puts a lot of extra stress on not only Father Derek, but Marika, Joe, everybody else that's involved in the church. So, a little patience will go a long way, but we're trying to move things forward so that we can have a wonderful place for our new rector to be called to. So just a little patience on that, and a big thank you to the staff in the vestry for taking care of us. One of the things that was not mentioned on the survey was the demographics. And just so you know, that 24% of our congregation here at Good Shepherd lives alone. So that is huge when you have had a COVID pandemic. So fellowship and getting back to programs is really one of our main priorities right now, especially when 66% of our congregation is over 65 years old. And so it is our duty as a church to get those people involved Number one, to take care of them, and number two, to use them to motivate our middle-aged and young people in what it means to be involved in the church. So thank you to that group of people, which I'm almost making. So another couple of years I'll be there. So we identified these areas. The first was, if you remember correctly, the youth were looking for involvement in the community. Now, we're not talking about outreach, which we do a great job with. We've got missions all over the world. We've got local missions. We've got our food pantry. We've got St. George's, and the list goes on and on. We're talking about reaching out into the community and involving people in our missions that typically wouldn't be involved. I'm just going to name one example, and Beverly is in charge of this with Carol Block. Each vestry member got a job to do. And so St. George's needs facilities. So Beverly has reached out to Mangrove Bay and to a group of her friends that play bridge with her, and they are now making sandwiches for St. George's and asking questions about what's this about, what church is this. So it's a community outreach to get people that are not members of our congregation. And she will be coming up with a list for monthly events for the next couple of months that we can get that involved with. And we have metrics to measure how many events have been held, and the vestry is going to keep tabs on this, and how many people this has brought to our church. The second one was our music, which of course, as you saw, was sort of an interesting point. This is a time maybe we can experiment a little bit. So Ian Anderson has volunteered his time to come up with some creative music, maybe evenings, maybe during a service, maybe during a healing service, maybe different forms of music. And you can go onto a QR code or fill out a little blurb that will say, I like this, I didn't like this, just to get some feedback where people are. This is something that everybody hated. Okay, well, we won't go there. This is something everybody across the board loved. Well, let's look at that. So just so that when the new rector comes, we can say, look, we've tried this, people hate this. So we were going to do that. Ian's in charge of that. Hosting activities and events. We're trying to get our calendars up and running. So America does a great job in updating that on our website. We're going to be putting some of the school events on and vice versa, because it's important that we get the school included in some of these things as well. And the new head of school, Heather Vaughan, is doing a great job in promoting that with her PA and her staff as well. So America's in charge of that. Monthly young family lunches. Brad David and David Dixon are in charge of that. As many of you know, we had our little chill and grill here the other day. Great success. We had a pizza night on Friday, which was wonderful. It was like having, dinner with your family. None of us spoke Italian, but that was all right. And they're going to try, their goal is to try to grow the Sunday school by 20%, which I think of any population group in our church that got left behind, it was the Sunday school. The youth had a hard time, they did, but they got up and running a little bit, even though they were all zoomed out from school on Zoom and everything. But the Sunday school really, really suffered. And that is the people that the 65 plus average age group needs to mentor and grow into the church. So we're hoping to get that going. Lay leadership training. Because we are understaffed at this moment, lay leadership is going to become more and more vital to our survival at this time. So America is going to, there's difference between, oh yeah, I can do outreach, or I can do this, or I can lead a Bible study. With lay leadership though, we have a certain, I hate to use the word, but culture here at Good Shepherd. And we have a nurturing and an accepting culture. And those are the kind of traits that we want leaders here to exhibit when they are managing their various ministries. So I think people that do manage ministries need some leadership training, or will benefit from some leadership training, and America's going to take care of that. And we'll do that sort of on a quarterly basis. Bring new people in, maybe somebody who hasn't ever thought of running a Bible study, and now they are thinking about, well, they can get some training. So QR code explainers, this is a little above my pay grade because it involves technology, but the little square you can hold your phone up to and, do things. America, in her technical genius, is going to come up with one every month where it's just a little explained. For example, October is we're going to be starting our generosity campaign. And so how do we make a pledge? What's going on with that? So you could hold your phone up to this little QR code, and it'll give you like a 30, 90 second little splurb about what it's about and how you can make your pledge. And so every month we're going to have a different one of these for different aspects that are going on in the church. If you want to, for those of us that are much more tech savvy than me. One of the huge things that we heard was people wanting to get back involved in spiritual formation and fellowship. And so Father Derek, I'm still going to say that 10 years from now. Community 101 classes, Father Derek is in charge of that. And there's going to be 6 of them that have already been lined up. And off the top of my head, I remember 2. The first one is going to be prayer writing, which is going to be Ian Anderson. There's going to be one on yoga, I believe, as a form of meditation. There's going to be one on conversations, the spiritual format. So there's going to be different things, and you sign up just like you sign up for adult learning. If you go to the university and you want to sign up, there's no cost to it. You just go on and you sign up, and you can attend these. They're usually about 5 to 6 weeks, I believe, each one of them. And you can enjoy some community fellowship and some spiritual formation. So this is what the vestry has outlined right now that we're going to be working towards. If anybody has any other questions or suggestions, of course we're open to those. Please, mention them to myself and or to anybody on the vestry. But we hope to be able to move us forward and grow us during this time of transition.
Just a PowerPoint if someone wants a copy.
Oh yes, if somebody wants a PowerPoint of Ian's talk, there are some available at the back as well. Yeah, Kathy.
I just think we ought to point out that yes, our staff has always worked hard, they're just working harder. But one person who isn't technically staff, but is working in basically giving us a whole another person. And we need to
This was not the job I thought it was when Father Doug asked me. But I truly have to say that if anything, it's been a huge blessing. Yeah, very rewarding, and I'm so more appreciative of everything that goes on here. And of everything, not just the staff does, that every single one of the congregation does, how they care for each other. This is a very unique, I've been to many churches, this is a very unique church, and I think we need to keep it that way. But thank you.
You are right.